What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dad Truth, where four dads come together to get real and talk about the good, the bad, and everything in between about the Dad Truth. It's dads win better together, and that's why we're here today. So let's get this damn thing rolling and get after it. So what we got here today, guys, is we're going to machine gun real quick. What's your name? What's your age? Where you're from? How many kids you got? And what's your occupation? I'll go first. Clay Smeltzer. I'm 44 years old. I have three kids from York, Pennsylvania, and I am a teacher. I'm a nutrition and fitness coach and a baseball coach. Ned, go.
Ned Duke. I'm a personal trainer, gym owner. I'm 49 years old. Um, Originally from New Jersey. Um, yeah, that's it.
How many kids you got, Ned?
Oh, sorry, two kids, boy and a girl.
Steve, go.
So Steve, I'm 36. Like Ned, I'm actually from New Jersey, but now in York. Two kids, and I work in corrections.
Matt, go.
Matthew Rhoda. I'm 42. I've got four awesome children. I'm a child of God and the owner of Lead by Example Marketing in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a good show. We're just going to go right after it. So, anybody have a big time? Because here's the thing: is the dad truth is all about telling the truth about being a dad. Because as men, we can sit here and we can be like, oh yeah, 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 everything's good. But I know what I used to say when everything was good. What I really meant is nothing was good because I wasn't the best I could be until I really wanted to have that conversation about it, and then talking with dads just like here. That's the reason why we're here in Dad Truth is to talk about the shit that no dads really want to talk about or have the questions that come up that dads really want to talk about and never ask anybody because we're either too afraid to, or we might get shot down, or we might get looked at like, oh well, you're weak, or that's a stupid question, or we don't talk about that here, because that's what I got all the time, like, oh, we can't talk about that. So who's got a good question that they're like, hey, I think this is a big one, let's dive in deep? Who's got a deep question that they want to ask first?
I would say my question is to Steve. My dad was a police officer, and I know what it was like growing up in a house with someone that was in law enforcement. What would you say, like for you, would be one of your biggest hurdles being in law enforcement and having a family?
I talked to Clay about this before. I think the biggest thing is like corrections is it's a negative environment. Everyone in there is negative to include staff. Just because you're surrounded by it. The biggest thing I think is to not take it home, but also not bring it in. So, it's corrections is what you make of it. And if you're having a bad day at home, you can't bring that inside the walls and take that on inmates. You got to treat everyone the same. You got to be fair, firm, consistent across the board. But for your family life and for your own mental stability, you also can't bring that home with you. So, once you start bringing it home with you, once your spouse, your family starts noticing changes, if they do, I think the big thing is to really swallow your pride and really, dig deep down inside yourself and say, all right, what's going on here? Why am I changing? And it shouldn't be affecting my family.
Yeah, let's take that around the board because each of us have like Ned, you're a business owner. Matt, you're a business owner. I'm a teacher and business like so. Let's Matt, what's your thoughts on that as being a business owner? Because you got a unique situation with what you're at too, because you're the provider.
Yeah. So I don't know if this answers the question directly, but what comes to mind for me is like intentionality. And I build my family's my number one priority. Like I've had dreams as a like younger entrepreneur to build a big business. And then when I realized that would take 60, 70, 80 hours a week to build that huge of an agency, I'm like, oh, that's actually not what I want because like my family, I've always said my family is my number one priority, and they are, and I build my schedule around them. So for me, the challenge, and it's not so much anymore because I found the peace in this and the clarity, but it used to be the disconnect between, oh, my friends are building these big businesses and I'm not. Why am I not like as successful as them? And it's like, oh, because I'm more focused and intentional about building my family life. And because of that, I have to sacrifice a big business. That's a sacrifice I'll make every day of the week for the rest of
Yeah.
my life because nothing is more important to me than family. So it's watching out for that imposter syndrome that creeps in very subtly. It's like, oh, I'm not successful because I don't have this. And to go, actually, it's not what I want, because if I had that, I wouldn't have this. And this is what I
Yeah.
really, really, really want.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Ned, what's your thoughts, man?
I would say, definitely what you say is learning how to have balance, right? Because when I got into, becoming a business owner, I knew that I'd have to put in the hours and I was working the hours anyway because, again, my father, he was in the military, he was police. So growing up, I saw my father very seldomly because he was always working. He was gone, overseas, or he had a second job. He'd do security, or, he was, working the force. So like, I grew up with that mentality of I got to work. Like, so I've always had 2 or 3 jobs. And then when I came out here and I was working at Golds and then I started my own business, like my mentality was, I'm just going to work. Like I can work all day, sleep 2 hours and then go to work. But like, that's one, it's not healthy. Two, like you're missing out a lot of family time. And it took me a while to learn that. And, being able to have people around you in the business so you can step away, hire people that are competent and able to. So because like my thought was, as soon as I walk away, if I go away for 2 3 hours, this building's going to burn down. I can't leave. There's no way I'm leaving anybody here. I got to do everything myself. And learning that I can't do everything myself is very, very tough. And it sounds weird, but it's true. Because this essentially is your baby, right?
Yeah.
But like learn, for me, learning that balance, understanding that I have to, step away. I have to, understand that, there's other things that are important. You can't work. You can't work yourself to death.
Yeah. And I think you put a big point in there that I think all of us and every man out here and every dad out here it needs to understand is that you can't do it all by yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because as men, we want to.
Right.
I could take it all on. No, you can't. I tried that for years. Doesn't fucking work. And I guarantee each and every one of you, knowing
I've
you,
tried it
you
plenty of times. I keep failing.
yeah, exactly. They always say, you get the lesson until you learn the lesson, but that's the same lesson I keep getting over and over again. They're like, Clay, you dumbass, you can't do it yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like God slapping me in the face every once in a while, going, "Boo, hey, dude, you need to wake up."
Right.
So I love this question too, is because like each of us have a way to provide financially for our family and what we go into. And for me as a teacher, I went right to lots of times I have like with my students, I can't say certain things, but with my kids, I can. And I have to watch saying to my kids what I want to my students because they do the same thing at home when I'm trying to help them as my students. I'm trying to teach you and you ain't paying attention. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Like, there's certain things I want to say, and then I end up saying it to my kids. I'm like, damn, I'm an asshole. Like that's where teaching is very stressful. It's a totally different beast and environment. And that's where what you said is Steve is huge. You can't bring that stuff home.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what I used to do is bring it home all the time. And not only mentally, but physically, it hugely affected me and it affected my family. And that's where it's like, well, how do we do that? And I think one of the things that I found that was very powerful is I drive 40 minutes for work from home. I utilize that as a transition time because it's not that I'm a different person at school and here I'm the same person, but I had to transition to how do I show up in that position? Because how I show up at school and how I show up in my house with my family is totally different. It has to be different because it can't be the same. It's two different things. So I think that's very important that we do. So love this question. That was good. All right, who's got the next one? Matt.
I'll,
Oh,
Matt,
you
wanna
got
go?
one, Steve?
Nah,
Get it.
Steve, go for it, brother.
Steve, get
Yeah.
it.
So I kind of I gauge my questions kind of like about me and my family, kind of where I'm at, I should say.
Perfect.
So they might sound a little weird, a little different, but
We like weird.
so
Keep it weird,
first
bro.
of all, I want to start off by saying for me, and I'm sure for you three as well, being a father is the best thing in life, right? Like, I find no greater joy than, being a father. I'm a family oriented man, within my wife and my kids, in addition to my extended family, my brothers, my sisters, and whatnot like that. So my question is, you see so much stuff like now on social media. There's a lot of like videos that I see all the time that pop up on Facebook, and it'll be about, toddlers. I have a 3.5-year-old son. So a lot of it is, and I've learned from my daughter who's 13, about to be 14, and now my 3.5-year-old son, we missed a lot with her. We've changed a lot. We were a lot younger back then. So you see all these videos that come up and they talk about toddlers and letting them be toddlers. Don't, overreact. Don't, lose your temper and stuff like that. So my question is, where do you draw that line? Where do you find where you can allow them to be toddlers? You can allow them to express their emotions, but you also don't want to create bad habits by allowing them to do things. For instance, um, my son sometimes, even tonight actually, didn't want to eat what he was supposed to eat, for dinner, and he wanted to play the Switch. And at times, my wife is the soft one, I'll say, where I'm more of the disciplinary one, where I'm like, no, like you need to eat your dinner. I don't want to create that bad habit where she would say, you know what, we'll just give him something else.
Mhm.
I don't want to create that bad habit and say, no, like you need to eat this. Because then if he does that, he's going to know in my eyes, well, all I got to do is create a little fit and I'm going to get my way. So where do you draw that line between letting them be toddlers, letting them express their emotions, and not creating the bad habit?
Good
Matt,
question.
Matt, you got twins that they're a little bit older than that now, right?
2.5.
Okay, oh, they're almost that. Yeah, you got
Yeah,
twins. So you
they're in
got
that
other
age.
little ones that went through. So
Yeah,
what are you doing?
man. Steve, as you're asking that question, I immediately go to my 6-year-old daughter, and because she's our oldest. We got a 6-year-old daughter, 4-year-old daughter, and then twins, boy, girl. And they're still at that like innocent, fun age where it's like we let them, we don't let them get away. Like I'm more inclined to like not push hard with them because it's like they're still literally like learning life. My 6-year-old though, man, I love her, but it's her first year, a full day away from her family at school. She's in first grade, and she's just going through it. It's like, and it's an like I love her. She's so emotional sometimes. And then we'll be like, my wife and I will be like, she's just being emotional. I'm like, no, like, yes, but no, like she's also a
Yeah.
6-year-old trying to figure out life and like experiencing new friendships and challenges and the stress from being away from us all day, which is Brett, like all these things. So there's times where very recently, I mean, the last 3, 4, 5 months with her has been the most challenging we've ever had in our short parenthood journey with her, but it's intense. And there's moments where, like in a 6-year-old, like I'll say something and it's very fair and truthful and honest, and she'll like hear something else, and then she'll like react in like anger and just like very upset and want to like scream. And then part of me is just like walk away and like let her get it out, like let her get it out and then go back. And then another part of me goes like, no, you need to address this in a moment because like this is unacceptable behavior. So and I don't have the answer. So like before I say anything else, let me finish by saying I don't have that answer because it's moment by moment. Sometimes I
Yeah.
handle it with grace, and by the end of it, like I give her the time, I lay next to her, I hear her out, I just let her be silent, and I get a hug like as I walk out the door. Other times I'll try that and it's just like, I need my space, get away from me. Like, and it's just like, okay, like should I still be here? Should I get up out of the room and leave now and give her? So for me, I don't think there's an answer to that, like where it's like do this, then this, and it equals this
Right.
every time,
Yeah.
rinse, repeat, and you're good. I think it's a moment by moment, like what makes sense, what's triggering that, how am I reacting, what's this bringing out in me, and there's no answer to it. Like I found there's no answer to it besides love, kindness, and understanding. Like if
Yeah.
you can approach all of those situations, regardless if it's the 2.5-year-old or the 6-year-old, with love, kindness, and understanding, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do it wrong over and over again, probably. But if if the energy from you to the kid, you to kid, you to kid is always love, kindness, and understanding,
Yeah.
whether they eat their vegetables tonight or not, like they're going to be good kids and good human beings that you're raising well because the foundation is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And it's hard because like I mean, we got 17 7 or sorry 19, 17, and 12. So we've gone through the stuff. We've had, Kale going up through and Callie going up through. So it's those times where you're like, where do we stand? Here's and again, I'm like Matt, there's no golden answer. You know what I mean? It's in the moment of what you feel are those, what are those, maybe that's a conversation with you and your wife too, or anybody that's listening to this, is that's a conversation you have to say, like, Amanda and I knew exactly where we stood on specific things. Outside of that, we're like, all right, let's be a little lenient, but we knew what those were. So like food kind of for us wasn't like, if we put it on your plate, we make it, you're gonna eat it. Like you gotta eat it. Like, okay, then there was like, well, how much? Because Kale used to do that whole thing. It was like, oh, I don't eat it.
Hmm.
Blah, blah, blah. And
Hmm.
it's like, and he got upset so much, like the one time threw up. I'm like, what? I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, what? You got yourself so worked up, you threw up because like it's so, but it's so weird, and so it's play by play. I think that's how you have to
Hmm.
do it, is play by play, but really get to what are the things that you feel that you, as a dad, you need to teach to your kids as they grow up, and those are the things that you really need to nail on. And the other point I want to put on this too, as they get older, it changes because now, like, they're in that toddler stage, so they're just playing around. But
Right.
like there was a certain age, like 10, 12, where their brains develop in a way that they know what's going on. Like they know things
Hmm.
are going on. So I also say to this is like each one of our kids, I always say like we walk around with a sword and shield on our back as men. And it's always there. It's always ready to be used. But I don't ever pull it out until I need it. But I think too is there's there came a time with my son and each one of my kids that they knew I will pull the sword and shield out on you. Like, so there has to be, Jordan Peterson talks about there's that monster inside. They have to know that there's that thing inside of you. I will pull my sword and shield because Kale said something to his sisters and I just lit him up because it was wrong. Like, I'm like, we don't do that to family. And I mean, I was in poise mode. Like my sword came out, my shield came here. I was like, I will take this shield and I will ram you in the face with this. But because it was just, it crossed the line of going, that's not what we do in this family. We don't treat each other like that, period. So there has to be that moment where that strength is shown and they need to know that it's there. But at the same time, like that's where you go, well, what's that line? And I knew that line was crossed then. But like with the food and stuff, that's where it's hard because it's like, do we stay so stringent or do we
Right.
give a little leeway? Because you don't want it to be where they take advantage of it. And I think that's where it
Hmm.
has to go is let's not take advantage of it. But it's a freaking tricky.
It is hit
Hey,
or miss.
eat four pieces and then you don't have to eat the rest. I don't know, some
So
shit
like
like that.
for me, growing up in a military family, like I guess like my father had was a very heavily influence on me. So my daughter's was my first child, and um, she's a young girl and she's very emotional, right? As we were saying before. So like she would cry if her sock fell down, or like it was just anything. If the wind blew too hard and her shirt blew up a little bit, she was crying. So like she taught me a lot of patience,
Yeah.
a lot of
Yep.
patience. But she, going back to like the eating thing, I was lucky with her. My son, on the other hand, God bless his soul, he was a challenge, and with him, I really did have to learn patience because, um, especially like me and my wife got divorced, and I believe my son at the time was 4. So like having that transition of okay,
Mm-hmm.
when they're with me, like they know like there's rules and there's things you can do, can't do, and they were good. But then when they went to mother, it was a free for all. So then when we come back with me, then it was like me trying to start all over again. So like trying to know like where that line is of like how far you let
Yep.
them go. It's like what Clay said, like you have to kind of set those boundaries, but like each child or each situation you have to handle differently, and you have
Yep.
to be able to know when to say no, okay, like you have to do what you're told, and then know when, okay, like you gotta walk away, let them vent or scream or cry, whatever it is they need to do, and then come back and be like, okay, you understand that what you just did you can't do, right? So yeah, it was very, very, it was interesting on how, like, me looking back at it now, like how, like going through that and how my parents had an influence on me on how I was handling those certain situations.
It is. I mean, like for us, we're like, I remember saying, "You gotta eat your plate," and my oldest was like, "What's that mean? Like I gotta eat the plate? Like I can't?" And I'm like, "No, you gotta like eat all of this stuff when you eat. You got." And my wife looked at me the first time. She's like, "What? You gotta eat your plate?" But
I could remember growing up, like my brother was allergic to everything. And Um, like he would, the only thing he would eat was he would eat apple, he would eat a hot dog, he would eat rice, and he would eat chicken. Those were the four things he would eat. He wouldn't eat nothing else. And my dad and him would have battles at the dinner table. And my mom was like, always a soft one's like, oh no, it's okay. Let
Hmm.
him, let him eat it. And my dad's like, in the military, he's got the military thing. He'd sit there with him all night. If it took him 10 hours, my dad would sit there with him all night and have the plate there, and he would have to like eat it. I remember the one time my brother's like, I can't eat no more. I'm full. And my dad's like, you better take one more bite. He did. He took one more bite and he's like, boom! He spit all the food out. He's like, I exploded. And I remember my dad getting up and grabbing him. My mom had to get in between them. I was like, I'm sitting there the whole time. I was like, I'm eating, I'm good.
That's great. Matt, what question you bring to the table today?
Which one do I want to do here? I'll go with my second one that I wrote down here is which am I helping my kids develop a sense of purpose and faith they'll always be able to rely on?
Mm,
Because the world's such a crazy place. And like I always like you can't control what happens, you can't control circumstances, you can't control how people treat you, can't control if your job fired. Like there's so many things you can't control. But and it's a very, very big focus on like my parenting and Helen's parenting with our kids right now, and they're still young, so they're malleable, and it's a great time to be doing this with them. Um, but really, it's like, what are you giving them? And it like for me, it's God and Jesus and faith in that. But it doesn't have to be that. Like whatever that faith in an unshakable thing is, what is that? So then when they get out into the world,
hmm
they're as unshakable as possible, that they got something that they can always say, no matter what happens, I've got this and I'm good.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to answer this because I literally just texted my oldest daughter today about this. I texted her and I said, I just want to let you know I'm proud of you. And she's off at college at Westchester, and I said, I just want to let you know I'm proud of you because, you're out, you got a job, you got school, you're doing all these things, like you're going after life. And right now in college, you might not necessarily be sure where that journey is going to end up after college and where you're going to be at. But man, you were kicking ass during a journey so far. And I think one of the things is that that's the culture we breed in our household. And that has to be set as you as the dad and mom too. It needs to be in on it too. But as men, that's the strong fierceness that we need to bring to the table. And I think, for us, like I lived so my kids saw me at my worst. My kids saw me when there was no purpose, there was no passion, there was no an anxiety filled panic attack on a couch dad. Like they saw me at that, but they also saw me battle through that. And I think that's one of the things that is the greatest thing my wife and I did because we both went through our own journeys, our own personal journeys. Because one of the biggest faults I had was I put everybody before me. And so when I gave everything to everybody else, I gave nothing to myself, and that's what I was giving. That's what I had. I had nothing to give to my family, and that's what they saw. But building that back, like our daughter saw that. So the strength that she has now is because my wife and I prioritized us first, and then we were able to give more to our kids because they saw us go through the journey and the hard stuff and us like talking about shit we didn't want to talk about, having conversations we don't want to have, digging deep, talking about shadow, like our shadow work. What's bad? What don't we like about ourselves and how can we improve? Setting goals, like like all of those things they've seen us do. They've seen us physically change. Like I think that was one of the biggest things they saw us physically change our bodies. And in order to get to where we were and do the things that we've done, like they saw that whole entire journey. So they're like, you know what? Like they were the example. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to be as dads is the example for our family, period. Like that's your biggest thing. And when you set that example of hard work, perseverance, because for me, it's own my shit, love my story, and live with purpose. And that's what I feel our kids are going after. They might not all fully be there, but like Haley, I was just thinking about her today, and I was like, man, she is like she's owning her shit. She's loving her story. She's living with purpose. She doesn't know where it's going, but she's kicking ass on that journey right now. And fucking a, like she's a badass. Like so, yeah, I'm getting teary eyed right now because I'm talking about it. But that's the thing is that's what we created. And like Steve, you said, like, hey, the greatest thing is kind of being like seeing that the fruition of it, because just like with Callie and Kid, we don't know how they're going to end up, and that's scary as fuck. Like you said, Matt, like all the things going on in the world is fucking scary. Like I just want to protect my kids, but I can't shelter them because then if I shelter them away from fear and pain and struggle and hurt and all of those things, I set them up for extreme failure. So, and plus, what growth has it done for me? Opening myself up to everything. Fuck, that was a game changer. You know what I mean?
That
So,
kind of goes back to the previous question of, with how, like, where do you draw that line? If
yeah.
like, how far do you let them go, you know, to let them fall on their face to be able to pick themselves back up, right? It's kind of like, the same thing as, but it's just in an older version, right? Because you can't protect them from everything, right? Unfortunately, it's probably the hardest thing a parent has to do is watch their child fail. But that is a learning lesson, right? That we do that now every day. Like there's something I'm failing. And, I mess up all the time. I had a business down in New Freedom. I had business partners that went wrong, but I had to figure it out. I fell on my face. And, being a business owner, you're in the public eye. Everybody sees you. And all the people see is like, oh my God, that guy failed, right? His business closed down there, but I opened back up and I'm doing better now than I was then. And it's just, you have to fail. That's what it is. That's the only way you're going to learn. If you're not failing, you're not trying.
Yep.
Right.
Failure's only feedback.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
I think you guys are making great points. I know myself, like I'm a huge protector. I try and protect too much, I think sometimes. But you guys are nailing it on the head. Like they're gonna fail. They're gonna get hurt, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, the whole nine. But, Matt, to answer your question, in my opinion, our kids see what we do. They will essentially mirror us. So if you're living your life through purpose, if you're living your life through faith and you're confident in that and you're positive that, you're doing, I mean, not everything right, but you're going to make mistakes. But if you feel confident that you're living the life that you want to live, you're loving your story, then your kids are going to mirror that. They're going to see it and they're going to say, you know what, dad's a badass. And one day I want to do that. I want to be like that. So, I mean, that's my answer to your question.
Yeah, and it is crazy because like the first part of your question is, man, it's in the world that we live in today. It's fucking scary. But we have to know as dads, we got everything it fucking takes. I will pull my sword and shield out. And I will stand in front of my family, but my family's also going to be standing next to me with their swords and shields because that's what we taught. And that's kind of how, and I think, knowing you enough, Matt, that's where you're at. You and your wife are boom, locked in. And that's an awesome thing. So, all right. Woo! This is good. Okay. I ain't getting drunk, but it's what it's all about. Hey, I ain't afraid to cry. Everybody ask. Okay, so my turn. All right. So here's a question I want to do. And I want to get to that. So since I got teary eyed and stuff like that, as a dad, what's your thoughts on being vulnerable? And should you share, and should your family see your vulnerability?
I'll go first. I think the answer to that is 100% yes. I'm a very honest person with my family. Sometimes probably a little too honest, but I feel like if I share my story with my family, especially, I mean, my wife knows me obviously, but like my kids, at least my 13-year-old, because she can understand it. I've shared a lot of stuff with her that she probably never knew, never thought that, I've lived through what I've been through. But I think it also is good for her that she can relate. She knows that, all right, you know what? I'm not the only one. You know, I grew up with a very tough upbringing, literally in the system, on welfare, the old food stamps, the paper food stamps, walking into the corner store with them as my mom sent me down the road getting, milk and bread, looking around my back to see if any, my friends were around, because you were embarrassed, like moved multiple times. I have drug abuse in my family. 17 years old, I found my mother dead. So I grew up with a rough upbringing. Mental health is in my family as well. and my daughter unfortunately struggles with that. So like I think if I share that with
Yeah.
her, she can definitely be, more comfortable sharing her story with me. At the end of the day, I want her to know that like I'm the parent, but you can also talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I wanted. I want her to be comfortable enough to where she can talk to me and my son too at some point. But vulnerable is good. Vulnerable isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
Vulnerable doesn't show, it doesn't mean you're weak. Me and Clay talked about this months ago, during one of his programs that he, shared with me. Like, vulnerability is not a bad thing. It's tough back in the day, for men to really show vulnerability because they thought it equaled weakness, but it doesn't.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's true. That was, you know, growing up, like, we didn't talk about emotions or feelings.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the biggest downfalls for men. That's why, I think men suffer more in silence than, people know. You're being very vulnerable, being open, being able to talk to your family, like, Steve said is very, very important. I've been around the block twice because I learned the first time and I shared that with my kids, making sure like they understand, like, there's consequences for your actions, right? Um, and being able to talk with them, again, trying to help them so they don't make the same mistakes you make,
Yeah.
and being able to know that they could come, to me and be able to talk, even with my girlfriend's kids, especially her daughter. Her daughter is 14 now, and she's been through some things, like you said, we live in a crazy world. She
Mhm.
during homecoming, she took pictures with her friends, and one of the kids pulled the pictures off her Facebook page, and AI generated it and made all the girls in the picture naked, and like she had to go through that. She's 14 years old. She doesn't know
Mhm.
anything about that, so like being able to, I talked to her a little bit, but like that's not really in my wheelhouse. The mother talked to her and she was able to, walk her through it, and it's a crazy world. So I think, we need to be able to be more open and talk to our kids about, things that we've been through, and
Yeah.
help them with these experiences.
Matt, what's your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with all you guys in terms of I've always laid all my cards on the table. First blind date with my now wife, I told her, here's like all the trouble I've been in, the drugs I've done, all of it. And I just told my friend this today, and he was like, that was a ballsy move. And I was like it's
That's
that
it.
or it's hide it, and then it comes out eventually, and
Yeah.
and then you're like, why didn't you tell me that before? It's like, oh, cause, and whatever the reason is. Um, and both answers were a lot about like, here's what I've been through, and like you can relate. Let's build a relationship and form a stronger bond through that. Clay, when you asked that question, my first thought was like vulnerability slash emotion. And it brought this might have been 6 months ago, a year ago, maybe. My oldest daughter was being really kind of not, she was being cruel to my wife, and not in like any really harsh ways, but like she's kind of like her punching bag and she's her safety zone. So when she wants to get in that mood, she goes after my wife, and it's painful to watch. Um, and we sat down, my wife, myself, sat down with Caroline, and I started like really like talking to her with love. Um, and it was really painful because I just want to I just want love in our home.
Yeah.
That's all I want. And it was lacking in that moment. And I was like crying through the conversation with my daughter. And that and it wasn't like if I cry, I'm gonna make a point here and like it's gonna make impact at
Yeah.
all. It just happened. But that immediately lowered her guard and went from being like and just like
Yeah.
defensive and like shut down, and they're just telling me what to do and how to do it, and they're thinking like all that just like melted away in that moment, and allowed, like, I could see it in her eyes, like it clicked that like,
Yeah.
oh, like what I'm doing is hurting them. And like, and it probably the next day it happened again. So again, it's not like magic wand, poof, it just fixed everything. But those moments where it, like, I don't have, and like they see me go to the gym every day, they see me like, you know, your muscles, and like they see that part of it. And I want them to see that like I'm the big, strong protector, and like you can always, they see stuff on TV like, Dad, are you stronger than him? I'm like, yeah, kiddo, like Daddy's stronger. And
That's
I'm
right.
not. Like, it's like Thor. I'm like, yeah, Daddy's stronger than Thor. I'm like, no, I'm not, but they want to think so. But so there's that persona that I want them to really rely on and count on. But there's also that flip side of it, which is like,
Yeah.
Dad's like able and willing to cry with me because this is an emotional moment. And like that, I also want them, because that then teaches them to let their guard down in that moment. And,
Yeah.
15 and a boy said something or did something, and I really like, I'm distraught and I'm wrecked. You don't have to be that like, it doesn't affect me. I'm not phased. It's like, this just rocked my world. And like, I just need to let my emotions flow because that's a healing process. I want to mirror that for my kids as well.
Yeah,
Mm.
100%. And vulnerable. And the reason why I asked this question is because for many guys, vulnerability is weakness. We talk about it, But what I have found out in my experience is vulnerability was the key to unlocking my ability to really effectively communicate with my family. Because when I wasn't vulnerable, I was hiding behind the funny guy mask and the tough guy mask. Those are the two masks I wore all the time. And Mr. Positivity mask. There's the first, there's the other, but they were all hiding because I was that insecure. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to say I had anxiety. Like that's for years, for 15 years of my life. I wouldn't say it. Like I just wouldn't admit it. And that got me to a panic attack on a couch. Like, but now once I've gone through that and been able to talk, now I can deal with things personally, but I can also relate to my kids. Like our middle daughter deals with a lot of same anxiety stuff that I have. Like I've been able to actually have a conversation with her and talk through and give her things to help her so that way she can excel. And like she's nervous about going to college. And it's really cool. She one of the things that she wrote, I forget what it was, but she wrote us a little note. Um, oh, it was her college application. That's what it was. And she's like, I just want you to read it. And we read it, and it basically said, "Thank you, Amanda and me, for being able to have conversations with her where she could talk and she could share and she could say that she was afraid because I was afraid to grow up. I was afraid of responsibility. I was afraid of all these things. I was afraid to drive. I was afraid to take responsibility of that. And just that letter, I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. But that never would have happened, the old me. That never would have happened if I wasn't willing to share with her the hurt that I've caused myself or the pain that I was in or the feelings that I felt or the emotions that I had and the things that I've done to help control that, because we have a lot of emotions, especially men. Men have 10,000 emotions. I think we have more emotions than women do. We just it's a different beast. And lots of times we just suppress them. But you control your emotions don't control you. And being able to know that for myself has helped me help her. And like last week, she just confirmed like her new roommate for school, which is awesome because she's stepping out of all of her comfort zones to be able to do this. So she's headed to Westchester, has a roommate now. Like all these things are all they're gonna meet up. I'm like, holy shit! Like who is this girl that like stepped out? But it's just cool because those things wouldn't happen if we didn't share the things that we have been through. And along the way, I've realized that the more vulnerable I am, not sharing everything like oh pity party, because that can go the whole other way. That's just stupid. Don't do that. But vulnerable enough for lessons to learn is strength beyond belief. Because some of the times to sit there and have these conversations to say, hey, your dad, this strong dude, had a panic attack on a couch isn't fucking easy to say. You know what I mean? So that's where it's like vulnerability is one of those things I think you have to do, and the more you do, you can communicate better with your family with that. Who's got the next question? What we got?
I mean, I can go.
Let it rip.
Tater chip. So my second one, so like I said, I have a 13-year-old about to be 14 in March and a 3-year-old. So I think something that I struggle with, I'll give you a little backstory. My wife works part-time, and a lot of times when she works, um, she'll work in the evening. So like 3 to 11, she's a nurse. Um, my daughter is my stepdaughter, so we have her 50-50, week on, week off. What I struggle with the weeks that we have her is trying to play Mr. Dad and trying to balance between not failing her as a more independent, self-sufficient, soon to be 14-year-old, and also trying to take care of my very needy, attention-seeking toddler. So my question really is like, how do you find that balance of being able to attack both and accomplish both and not failing either one?
That's a good question because my girlfriend's daughter is turning 14 this Saturday. So I'm interested to hear these answers. That's a very good one.
Yeah. And I'll go, 'cause we have a split there too, so it is difficult. Like Haley's 19, Kale's 12. There's 7 years in there. Like, you know what I mean? There's 5 years in between him and Callie. So, like, as the girls got older, we had to do older things with them. And then Kale's a boy. So it's like fishing,
Mhm.
it's like baseball, it's like these things. So, like, that's where, as a dad, there's lots of times I felt guilty that I didn't do enough for my girls. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't go on the daddy daughter date or this or that, or like I don't spend enough time and like doing that because like baseball, I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's difficult that, again, I want to say balance, but there is no such thing as balance because it's stagnicity. But when you look at that transition between those, like, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality that you spend with them in those moments. So I just try to make sure like I get in there for each one of those moments. Like once he goes to bed, then that's your time with her, or or things like that. Or how can you incorporate her into things with both of them? So that's what we try to do too, because Haley, having our oldest go to college is like, oh my God, like all of three of our kids aren't here. It's like, what the fuck? Like there's a hole in our house right now because one of them's not here. So it's like that really opened up our eyes to a lot of things that come into play with this, and just making sure like, hey, we do spend time with those because that time is very quickly going. And next year we're gonna have two like at college. You're not gonna be here. I'm like, what the fuck? So like I'm like breathing heavy, but it is tricky. But just plan it in, you know what I mean? Like I know it's tough to kind of do. Um, but if she knows you're there for her, she's gonna know that you're there for her. And it sucks because the teenage girl lots of times is like, "Yeah, I don't want you. Like I don't want you," but she does.
Mhm.
You just
Mhm.
gotta be, and this is what I said to my, because our two youngest are 50-50 custody too. It's a 2-2-3 schedule. So with their moms, and they're at two different houses. So our middle daughter's to my first wife, and my son's to my second wife. So they're two different houses, not even the same mom. And it's different to splice it in there, but you have to make sure like, hey, you with Callie, I always said, and with both of them, and I said to my wife, I'm playing my game. Like I'm staying the course. And if you stay your course, they're going to know. And that's where like when the time comes, like not when the time did come and Callie needed it, it was me. And I didn't think for the longest time it was. But she's like, no, I can always count on you, Dad. Like I know I'm going to get the straight truth with you, but I know you're going to also help me out. And sometimes people get too emotional, so that's why I come to you. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, yes. So stay the course. I would say stay the course with what you do, um, and know that what you're doing is down the road is going to pay off. But right now, like it's a mess. You know what I mean? So just
Mhm.
live in the mess. Do what you can in the mess, and then but stay true to who you are. And when you stay true who you are, they know that. And down the road, it'll be like, I know I can come to you. So
Yeah.
I'll answer that similarly with a slightly different twist to it because our kids aren't like next level ages yet, but our 6-year-old is now, again, she's in first grade, so she's out of the house. Her younger siblings are still in now, and we hear a lot over the last 3, 6 months. You never spend any time with me, like, and it's like, sweetheart, like, yes, we do. So my response, Stephen, to your question is like, can you look in the mirror and acknowledge to yourself that you're doing the very best you can? If yes, then give yourself total grace because all you can do is the best you can do.
yeah.
And I've said this to my wife because when she like when our 6-year-old Caroline will like say that to us, I don't laugh in the moment because I know to her it's her truth. Like to her, it's like, you never spend time with me. And I'm like, sweetheart, like 3 hours ago, like we were doing one-on-one time in your room. Like, yes, we do. And I'm like, you're delusional. I'm not saying this. I'm thinking this. Like, you're delusional. Like, yes, we do. But in her like rage and like anger, it's like, no, you don't. So I'm not going to confront her and fight her about that because it's my truth versus her truth. And there's
Right.
no point in trying to like convince her that
Yeah.
she's wrong because she's 6 and she's emotional. But when she's saying that, I'm able to like let that in one ear, out the other, bounce off me. And I kind of find some like humor in it because I know it's not the truth.
Yeah.
My wife will hear that and it'll like wreck her for a couple hours. And like she'll carry that weight for the rest of the day. And it's like, she's so upset. Like, like, what are we doing wrong? And I'm like, we're not doing anything wrong. Like, we got 4 kids, we got moving parts, like we got, personality A, B, C, and D. We got like A to B. Like it's chaos. Like, but we're doing our best and we're
Yeah.
doing a great job at it. So I give myself grace and I find humor in it as opposed to getting upset by it because it's like, she's 6. I love her to death, but she's delusional at times. And like nothing I can say or do is going to change that. So why bother fighting it, knowing, and I say that only because I can look myself in the mirror every night and go, you love them, you care for them, you do everything you can for them, and you're doing your absolute best. I check all those boxes. I don't have to worry about her response to me or thinking that I never spent time with her because it's not true.
Yeah.
So it's really, give yourself grace, man, because you're never going to have the perfect answer for every kid at all times. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
I
There's
guess
no book.
Yeah.
no, there isn't. Like my question would be like almost like the opposite of that, right? So again, like my girlfriend has a 14-year-old daughter, and I'm very much in her life, and it's I think our relationship suffers because Bobby's ex-husband is very he's an interesting fellow. He has, he tells her, to stay away from me because of the color of my skin, to I'm a horrible person, I'm the reason why they got divorced. It doesn't matter that, he is abusive and he did, other numerous things. And like he tells this to, to her kids. And I think, not that I think that that does affect our relationship because like she's now caught in the middle of that.
Yep.
So like my question is like, how do you handle something like that? Like, how do you move forward from something like that? Because, when she's with me, she comes to the gym, like we're in a great mood, but then like, they're on, what's it called? 360, like 360, whatever it is.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
So like when he knows she's here, like he'll call her 100 times. What are you doing? What are you around him? Like, and it's like that just ruins the
Yeah.
moment. He has to always try to interject himself. It's like how would you handle something like that? It's a hard situation. It's toxic.
Yeah.
I don't want to say much, and
Yeah.
I'd love to
No.
pummel him in the middle of the driveway, and it's almost come to that point a couple of times, but
Yeah. Well, it's tough in the split because like that's what we have. I mean, we had Haley's, my wife's to her dad, and then we got my oldest is to her mom, and then Kale's to his mom, and like we got 3 different people we go through, and when there's all these other influences coming in, and especially when it's negativity, a lot of times, this is where I'm going to go back to exactly what I said you stay your course, like
Mhm.
there's a book out, I forget, oh, I just forgot her name. I can see her, Mel Robbins. It's called Let Them. And then the second part is Let Me. And my wife was like, man, you said a lot of things in this book already, not even knowing it, but I just let them. You let them do what they're doing. And I always said, like, they're going to do what they do. I can't stop it. Like, they're going to say this, they're going to say that, because there's awful things. Like, I've had children youth call on me twice from both of them. Like, so I've had to go through that. I've had to have another teacher in my room for the last month of the school year because I was under investigation for nothing. Like, but that's what I had to do.
Mhm.
But let them. And those are the things that as we go down the road, that's where kids figure it out.
Mhm.
Like, so that's where we let us, is we stayed our course. Like, this is how I'm going to show up for my kids, like Matt said. And I
Mhm.
don't do anything else other than that. I can't help what somebody else says. You can't do that, but I can't help me.
Mhm.
And so that's where it's like, it's tough. Like, That's the ultimate because you want to protect. You want to be like, like there's lots of I want to rage out. Like, and when I felt
Mhm.
like that, I went for a run, a really long run in the woods.
I hate running.
I do too, but that's what helped. But that's where it's like, let them, and then you let you. Like, what do you do for you? But I just let I let stupid people be stupid, and give them the thumbs up. This is a great thing to do. Is just a thumbs up for that. Yeah, I don't got anything else. So, but it's tough, man. It's tough.
I'll
That's
I'll share, and coming in this call, I have no idea like anyone's faith, but I'd like, for me, prayer.
Mm.
Prayer, like I've watched, I've gone, like I was born and raised Catholic, went away from God, everything for like 15, 20 years, and now last 2 years have reestablished a relationship, and it's better than it's like my lifeline basically. But I've seen prayer perform miracles. So and that's not to say you pray for that guy who's doing all the bad mouthing and it's going to like stop, and you're like, holy crap, God answered my prayer, and like he's a good guy all of a sudden. But if there's nothing you can physically do,
Mhm.
and like Clay said, it's pointless to try to physically fight. Like, when I say physically, not necessarily fisticuffs, but just like he said this, well, that's a lie, and like all the back and forth, and your kids just gonna get garbage, and like who do I like? It's just chaos that you're creating for them. If
Mm.
there's nothing that you can do besides set the example, like Clay said, and stay your course, the other piece of that for me immediately would be prayer. I would go to God and I would ask, like, please protect my child, please protect like our relationship, and please change his heart to stop wanting to poison my kid with him about this, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Mm.
That would be my, like, from the bottom of my heart, like lean into God and let God do the heavy lifting, man, because that's what he wants to do for us. It's
Yeah.
not ours to carry.
Mm.
Any thoughts,
Yeah, I
Steve? Because
think,
it's that you've been in.
yeah, I mean, fortunately for us, we have a very, very good relationship with Kylie's father and her stepmother. Um, we've all been in her life since my wife was pregnant. So just like long story short, my wife was pregnant, found out about a month and a half in a relationship. Hey, I'm pregnant. Okay, great. I already fallen in love with you. I was in college. Stayed together, almost 14 years later, well, more than that because she was pregnant. We go on vacations together. We have family dinners like in the summer. We communicate very well. It wasn't always like that, but it has grown probably over the last probably 8 years to be that. Some people would look at that as like weird because split families don't do that. Mom and dad don't have a good relationship, and then the parents, the step parents, aren't really involved like we are as well. But we have a unique relationship. But anyway, my case in point is if you have a good relationship with her daughter, she's 14 or will be 14 on Saturday, I think you said.
Yeah.
Um, you stay the course, exactly like Clay said. I think she will be able to see through all the negativity,
Mm.
and hopefully she doesn't treat you any different. If you're a positive influence in her life, you have a great relationship, you continue that. There should be no reason why that should be affected by what he's saying or doing. I'm not saying it can't. Obviously, I think we all know that. But if she doesn't see any of that he's claiming and whatnot, and you guys have a great relationship, in my eyes, there's no reason why it shouldn't continue.
Mm.
It's just
You just got to be the bigger person, I guess. Like, be the bigger man. Like that. Don't step down to that level because that's not you.
Right.
that's what I always say. Yeah, it's just, you gotta take the punches. It's just it's like being in battle. You gotta battle. And the one other point that I was gonna say too is there's I respond when I think something's going to be received. And if it's not going to be received, I just don't respond because there's lots of stuff I want to say. There's lots of stuff I could point out. There's lots of stuff I could go awful and but the problem is none of it's going to be received.
Mm.
So it's worthless. It's pointless to have that conversation because what's going to happen? Nothing. They're going to be pissed. I'm going to be pissed, and I'm going to say "fuck you." You know what I mean? That's what it's going to be.
That's what
So
my mom used to say, let clowns do what clowns do best, and that's act a fool.
that's it. That's
I
it.
like that.
Yeah. And that's what you got to do, and you guys just got to be. It's like it's just stay the course. You know what I mean? Like here's my game plan. I'm sticking to the game plan because the
Mm.
game plan works. So Matt, what's your next question?
I got, if you're not living your dream life, what's stopping you? And then when you get your first answer, take a step back and say, okay, now what's really stopping me?
Mm. Oh, damn. Me.
Hmm.
I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that right now. Me.
And
That's
then how are you stopping you?
how am I stopping
Or
me?
why are you stopping you?
Procrastination. Procrastination and fear. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm still fighting with um the two greatest questions. Am I good enough and do I have what it takes? I've been fighting those in 2024. I've been fighting it all year. And one of the reasons why it goes back to, well, you weren't good enough. You didn't have what it takes to make the major leagues because I broke my thumb in three places and couldn't play anymore. Like it stems back to that. Like I'm not gonna, I had two failed marriages. Well, again, what it comes down to, it's not failure, it's feedback. But the damage I did mentally to myself prior to me growing myself is still breaking down the onion. So I'm not in the middle of the onion, so I got to keep breaking that down. And it's those things that come back. So either come back or new things I've unraveled that I'm like, it's not going the way I want to, and now I get pissed off. So it's me. That's why it's me. But it's great because that's why we're on here because that was one of the changes. I'm like, man, I got to talk to dads again. I got to talk to like, I'm missing this. Like like this conversation. Like, fuck, I could do this all night. I mean, we don't want to because we got to go to sleep. But like,
Yeah, I got 4 o'clock client now.
you can say you said you work all night till 2 hours. No, uh, but that's where it's like these conversations here, dude. This is the conversations I've had since January 1st when I'm like, no, fuck it, I'm going back to helping dad. Like we're gonna have those conversations. Is what is like that's where my heart lies. So realizing that's where my heart lies and stay there is a great thing. So, but it was me. It's me. It's always me. I
Yeah,
Steve
I would have
or
to.
to go Ned. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say I would have to say the same. I remember before I opened up, my business down near Freedom, like for years, like me and my brother and like, the clients I had there, I was like, why don't you start your own business? Why don't you start your own business? And it was a fear, like that change. Like people don't like change. I didn't like change. I was comfortable. I was getting a paycheck. Like, why do I want to start my own business? Why do I need the headache? But I was working the hours of being an owner. So why not? And I ended up starting my business during COVID. And everybody's like, you're crazy. I'm like, well, if I don't do it now, then when am I going to do it? Right. So I did it. I just, I adapted. I did outside classes. I did, stuff via Zoom. I think that's when Zoom became really big during COVID. And I did it, but like I was my problem. I was stopping me from doing it. I could have did it a long time ago, but everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. And I did it when I was supposed to.
Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking it's a great question for me. Like, what is a dream life? What it's like normalcy. What is normalcy nowadays? So like for me, um, not to sound like a broken record, but yeah, you are the only person that is stopping you from doing what you want to do in life. I'm thinking now, for me, I'm not materialistic. I don't need a brand new, beautiful home, 17 acres, all kinds of vehicles and sports equipment and ATVs. Like I don't need all that. For me in life is happiness and spending it with family. But it's also about like your, being able to do you. What do you want to do? Do you like the way you look? Do you like the way you feel? Or, are you where you want to be spiritually and emotionally and whatnot? So yeah, I mean, like now I can say, like for instance, Clay, I didn't tell you this, but like I want to get back onto tracking macros and getting back to being more disciplined at the beginning of the year. It's January 15th and I haven't done it. I have no one to blame but myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I gotta get back on track and really just, start doing that for me. So I can be there and be a better person for my family. Because I love the way I felt when I did that. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you're the only person stopping you from reaching your goals.
Love it. I'm with you too on that.
I could call you every day and tell you you're fat until you start doing
Sometimes you need that.
it.
Matt, how about you, man? And your own question on that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys already answered it for me basically, which was it's like answer one, answer two, dig down. It's fear of something, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of what are other people going to think, fear of shouldn't I've already accomplished it, like all those things that it paralyzes you if you let it. And I made a big change end of last year going into this year. I had a marketing company with my brother and I sold him my 50% equity to start from scratch because God put it on my heart that I need to hit the reset button for different reasons. And I was just talking to my buddy today about this, and I was like, my head, every part of me was like, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, you're the sole provider. Like, do not go back to $0 per month. Like, no. But my heart was like, if you don't, you are going to stay in this level of comfort for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years of your life. And when I would close my eyes and project my, like, see my future play out like that, I'm like, that's like 10, 5, whatever, 15 years of waking up, kind of being like, eh. And like,
Mhm.
I wasn't built for eh. Like, I was built and I'm destined for like,
Love it.
this is what I want. I'm going after it. Like, it's
Yeah.
going to scare, it's going to be scary. And last year was, this year started it, like, the scariest 14 months of my life in terms of like, are we going to make it? And then I'm faithful. I'm like, of course I'm going to make it. Like, God always provides, like, just follow the lead. But fear could have kept me in my comfort zone,
Mhm.
which could have kept me in a comfortable life for the next 30 years till retirement. And I made more money then than I do now. I could have been happy and comfortable, but I wouldn't have been on fire for what I'm doing. And
Yep.
for me, like, if you're either on fire, you're not on fire.
Yep. Feeling that. Same
I
thing. That's
like
why
it.
I switched. That's why we got this. Last question here. I'm going to have it to you. Um, what's your favorite thing about being a dad?
Mhm.
I'll answer that one first here. I love the fact that I'm responsible for, now I've got four of them, so four little souls that are evolving through this thing called life and are gonna like shoot out of this home into the world at some point and go in some direction. And what I do, what my wife does, and what we do as parents for them and with them is going to, in every way possible, impact what they go out and do in life. Like, and I love the hugs and the kisses, and like I love all that. It's like it's my favorite thing in the world. Um, but if I really think from a big picture, what really like makes me so proud and happy to have this role and this responsibility on this earth, it's that we're forming and molding other human beings to go out into this great big world and make an impact, good or bad.
Love it.
Yeah, so my kids are older. They're 20 and 21. Um, and, to kind of, get back to what Matt just said, like seeing, remembering them when they're younger and then seeing where they are now, and like how they've grown and how, some of, my habits and some of their mother's habits they've taken on. And my daughter, for, whatever reason, is my mom to the T. Like when it comes to her being a wise ass, and and like even my mom had like this little crooked ear, and like she's just like her, just like seeing how they grow and they mold, like just taking the time to like sit back and watch them, just grow and go into life and become their own person.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Steve?
I love the stages.
Hmm.
Just thinking back all the memories, when Kai was an infant, and then a young baby and then a toddler and just growing up through the years and comparing, um, you know, Caden and how he is. Um, just seeing the stages are great. Like I said earlier, we we missed a lot with Kai. We don't remember a lot because we didn't take it all in. And now we've learned from it. And with Caden, we try and do so much to where, it's not as much pictures anymore, but now it's more of the video so we can look back on it. And just seeing them grow, learn, develop, fall, make the mistakes. Um, I just love seeing it. I love taking it all in. Like I say at work, probably about a year and a half ago, I was talking to a buddy from work and I said, what gets you through your day? Like what this place is negative. What gets you? He's always a positive guy and I love it. And he gave me his story and I said, what gets me through mine? My kids. I get through this. I know that in 6 hours, 4 hours, 2.5 hours, I'm going to get home and they're going to bring like light to me again. Like I'm excited to go home and spend time with them. I don't care if it's just talking and saying, "Hey, what was the best part about your day today?" I love that. Nothing greater in this world, in my opinion.
I love it. It's good. I think my favorite thing is having the opportunity to take on the challenge of being the example. Because it's a like you the responsibility, Matt, when you said that, that's I think one of the things that are ingrained in men is taking responsibility. You know, we're always the provider protector. That's on our mentality, that's in our DNA. But why? Because it's the responsibility and the ownership of those are my people. And to see them go out, just like when I texted Haley today, just seeing that and the growth, like she's a strong young woman. Fuck, I love it. But that's what we raised, and to see that fruition come to fruition, and Callie getting a roommate stepping out, like Kale taking ownership, like on the field, like those are the moments and things that I'm like, fuck yeah, these are little badasses. Let's do this thing. So that's where it's just like, all right, cool, we're doing it, and that's also that confirmation because all of our families are different. And when we play the comparison game, we always play the losing game. But when we look at what is that affirmation that says we're doing the right thing, we just got to look at our kids, man. We got to look at our kids. And I think each and every one of us here can sit there and be like, damn, them motherfuckers are awesome. At least that's what I'm saying about my kids. So, um,
Amen.
yeah. Well, guys, thank you, man. Thank you for this dad truth because that's what it is, man. We talked about good, the bad, the in between, all the stuff. And I just appreciate you being on here and having that conversation with us. And we're gonna continue to do this more and get other dads involved to hear their dad truth as well. So, any final thoughts from anybody?
No, man, but thank you for putting this together. This was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Appreciate you having me.
Heck yeah, man. I appreciate every single one of you. You guys are influences in my life. You guys all have qualities that, that exude excellence. And that's what I want to surround myself with. And that's what I think other men need to surround themselves with too, as well. So I think one of the things that we do better is dads win together or win better when we're together and just bringing dads together into dad truth and having these conversations. So I appreciate the hell out of you guys. And let's go kick some ass, man.